Drivin Ivan here, and meeting your heroes is sometimes intimidating, sometimes amazing, but this car behind me, I really can't think of a single car in the world that I'd rather review. I have never driven this car. I've toured the Lamborghini factory. I interviewed Valentino Balboni at the museum. You can search YouTube and find it. But this car is such an incredible icon that, you know, I always finish these intros with, will I be impressed? If every single wheel fell off of this car and I only got to drive it a half of a block, I would still be impressed, I promise you. But what I want to do today is really convey the sense of what it is like to drive your hero and what it is like to drive the amazing Lamborghini Countach. Have you smashed that like button yet and subscribed? I hope you have. Let's do it. Just take it in. I mean, it conjures up images of course, the poster that everybody had in their bedroom in the 80s, in the 90s, even today. I bet there's still a lot of posters of this car. The wheels, the front end. I mean, it's just menacing. I think it was David E. Davis. In fact, I know it was David E. Davis who said, you know, if someone hands you the keys to this car, you're intimidated. It's just, I mean, every single angle. I don't care about the federalized rubber bumpers there. It doesn't matter. You know, you could put eyebrows on the headlights. I don't care. It would still look amazing to me. This car is just amazing. And this quattro valve version, this is an 88, by the way, and this is the best looking Countach to me. Yeah, the Periscopa is cool. It's the original, but the wing and everything else, it's over the top. It's brash. They redid the car, basically an Aventador, and they made it basically look like this, but still, the new one doesn't even do it for me like this. There's no angle on this car. There's nothing about this car that I can fault. And, you know, going up high here, you're definitely reminded of that poster. There's no bad angle for this car. Absolutely no bad angle whatsoever. It is an absolute beauty. Yes, the federalized bumpers, kind of like on the Porsche 911 from back in the day. The American rubber bumpers in the back were a little bigger. Some people revert to the Euros. I don't care. You know, it's just, it's simply perfection to my eye and to my brain, because, you know, you see this car and you're reminded of the first couple of minutes of Cannonball Run. You're reminded of just the first time you saw it. I'll speak later when I'm driving about other things that I remember about this car, but it is just, oh my God, it's just absolutely gorgeous. And yeah, there's zero wrong with this car. I love it in white. It's one of those cars I think should be white or black or blue. And when I was at the Pebble Beach Concours Elegance, the Countach was the featured car, and there were about 25 of them there. You can just search YouTube for any car I mentioned, but search YouTube and Pebble Beach Countach Drivin Ivan and you'll find it. There was one that was purple and white, but this one is really the one. I've always loved it in white, and I think these look far superior to the later anniversary edition, and I think they ultimately look cooler than the Periscopa. I could sit here, you know, I haven't driven it yet, but I am absolutely jaw-droppingly in lust with this Countach. Okay, now I'm going to step inside of this beauty and we're going to look at the interior. Look at this. Press up here. Ugh! And it just floats up, floats away, and look. Yeah, first I'll show you the scissor doors. Come on. Gotta show you the scissor doors. I mean, nothing even opened like this. Like, this was such a paradigm shift in automotive design. If you take the Miura before it, it's, you know, it basically uses the same engine still and the layout and everything, but, you know, LP, longitudinal posterior, whatever the Italian is for it, it's the same thing, but it's just paradigm shifting. That's why it's called the Countach. It's just an expression of amazement. And as you step inside, look, it sort of has an H-gate. And, you know, every mid-engine car, I mean, my Lotus Esprit is not too dissimilar from this. But again, you've got the Lamborghini Bull right there on the floor. It's unmistakably a Countach. The owner has that fire extinguisher right there. You know, if you run in a certain class on the track, you have to have that. So it's good he has that installed. Look at that beast of a fan behind you. Look at that. Marcello Gandini was the designer for Bertone. And, of course, he knocked it out of the park. And even inside, it's everything you need and nothing you don't. So by today's standards, it's Spartan. But look at that tiny steering wheel. Again, I haven't driven it yet. I see some parts similar to maybe some other cars that I've had or have, like my Lancia, the Lancia Delta Integrale, another bucket list car. But this is the bucket list car of bucket list cars. Let me just get in here and show you what it looks like. This even takes a technique. Oh, God. Where did I just arrive? Heaven on earth. That's where I just arrived. Wow. Oh, yeah. You got the Lamborghini Bull in front of you. A lot of Lamborghinis are named after prize-fighting bulls, like the Miura. And look at that. Well, the Espada is a sword, but look at this. Only the gauges that you need. You've got your voltmeter, got your temperature gauge, you got your speedometer up to 320 kilometers per hour. So you might think it has 23,904 miles on it, but you would be wrong. Those are kilometers. And that means it's got about 14,800 miles, and that's pretty darn low miles. Really, really cool. Just think, since 1988, it's only been driven 14,000 miles. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I think Jay Leno says his has like 80,000 miles. To give you an example, that's probably something like 130,000 kilometers. So there you go. Over 105 kilometers more on Jay Leno's daily driven Lamborghini Countach. So that's pretty cool. Got your oil pressure, and you've got your tachometer, of course, red line at 7,400, let's call it, and temperature gauge, and also your fuel gauge. What else do you need? The only difference between the 88.5 would be maybe a digital readout here for the temperature setting on your ventilation controls, but the air conditioning in this one works. Here is the beautiful H-gate shifter, and this is Italian, so of course you have to have your ashtray, absolutely, and vents. Alpine, yes, of course. I mean, that was the whole poster right there. Alpine radio. Does have a glove box, and like I said, a fire extinguisher. These seats just totally hold you in. And here's these world famous Countach windows, roll up windows, and a little vent right there for the speakers in your seat. No storage here. Of course, the transmission's traveling through there. That's part of what makes the shape. Can you see out the back? Who cares? You're never going to be looking backwards in this. But you can a bit. It's kind of like the Esprit, I would say, but this is just nice. And you know, thankfully I can fit in any exotic car because I'm on the short side. But there you go. Pedals, pretty close together, but you know, can you heel and toe if you need to? Yeah, you can. You can heel and toe if you need to. See? Match those revs on downshifts, and underneath here you have some light controls, and yeah, digital clock right there. So yeah, you've got it all in your Countach. Wow. And you talk about really, really, really clean looking leather, and this is because basically the animals that were used for this leather live at the top of the mountains in Italy. Therefore, there's no fences that they could run into, no barbed wire. They're the smoothest, cleanest animals, and that's why this leather still looks so amazingly good after all this time. Just more attention to detail and exotic materials in your Countach. So all the shapes on the Countach are rhombuses, trapezoidal, and it's such a cool looking car. The front here, oh my god, look, there's more room. That's because the spare tire's not there. But you know, at this stage of the game, if something were to happen, yeah, you just call a tow truck. I mean, come on. But pretty simplistic. The brake fluid reservoir there, the booster, and you know, maybe some windshield wiper fluid. But yeah, in a pinch, you could put a bag of clothes down there too. So all this stuff about, oh, you can't carry anything in your Countach. You can. It's just old wives' tales. Apparently this wiper reservoir is priceless and irreplaceable, so you definitely want to make sure that that's in good working order if you're looking to buy a used Countach, because you just cannot get another one. This is the engine bay. This is the trunk. And now it's open. So the trunk. Here's my tripod. Let's open it up and see. I mean, you know, everybody says you can't fit anything into it. You could squeeze a couple bags in there if you had to. If you're a really, really smart backer, you could do it. And look, my tripod fits in there just fine. Come on, that's awesome. Wow, wow, wow. Longitudinal posterior. This engine is flipped around. It was transverse in the Miura, and then they went ahead and put it longitudinally in reverse. That's the LP of the LP 5000 Quattro valve. 4 valves per cylinder, and just amazing. 16 quarts of oil, and 420 horsepower and 340 pound-feet of torque in this, guys. It had more horsepower for the Euro version. 0 to 60, people say 4.2, they say 4.9, but sub 5 second, and top speed would be 189 about without this wing, which is really above 300 kilometers per hour, but about 182 miles per hour. And you don't really care, but 8 to 12 miles per gallon. You see, these stickers are pretty rare, and that's the type of oil he uses, A-dip. So yes, you want to warm these up before you run them, and that's what we're doing. I cannot wait to drive the Countach. Here we go. This is the moment I've been waiting for I can't even tell you how many years, because I don't want you to know how old I am. But I did tour the Lamborghini factory in 1999 with Valentino Balboni as my private tour guide. I had met him at Pocono in the 90s, and he remembered me. It's a good story, but and then I had the opportunity to see him at Concorso Italiano at the Pebble Beach Monterey Car Week a few years back. So I'm not a young kid, but this is absolute total dream, and here we go. Woo! And we're off. No stalling. I'm a happy man because of that. Checking the brakes. Whoa, it's low. Oh my god. That's the first impression, is you're low. and you're inside of this crazy window here. You can barely open. Using my signal, checking the horn as you would do. Wow. It is the clutch effort. The clutch effort absolutely is heavy, like everybody tells you it is. The dog leg first, and so you're up and over, but it's got the familiar gated pattern. So in terms of guiding the stick, it's not an issue at all. A guy on a bike next to me just totally almost fell off his bike looking at this Countach. And that is just the first. We haven't even barely left the neighborhood, and already someone's almost fallen off their bike because they saw the Countach. That's what this car is all about. It is the icon of icons for me. There's just nothing else. There's nothing else that even comes close to a Countach. Again, all four tires could fall off now. I've driven the Countach. It's amazing. You wonder what it's going to be like. You sit awake at night and dream of this car, and you've watched every single review about this car, and wow, here you are driving it. It's one of those amazing experiences, and that's really the first thing I can say about this Countach. It's a feast for every single sense. Everywhere you look, you can see the familiarity of the shape, the crazy shape of this car, and it's just absolutely stunning. Coming up to my first bend here, oh man, sound of that 12 behind you, it's just luscious, it's angry, it's I just got a head shake from a guy sitting on the corner. He just shook his head. I mean, you cannot be a shy person in this car. I do remember one of my first Countach stories is a friend of mine who drove a Ferrari 400 to school. Well, his dad had a Countach, and I remember seeing it drive down the main street of my town and just hearing it ricochet off of everything and the sounds it made. I don't see how anybody could drive this car and say, oh, it's gonna disappoint you. There's no way this car could disappoint you. I once spoke to a famous artist who says he traded a painting for some intimate time with a certain blonde bombshell named Pamela Anderson. And I said, look, I've seen her private tapes. I don't think she's all that fantastic in the sack. And he said to me, no, you don't get it. You just had intimate relations with Pamela Anderson. And that's exactly like what this car is like. It doesn't matter the driving experience. And I will tell you, it is not bad at all. It's really good, actually. The only thing is the heavy clutch. But everything else is just Italian perfection. They're known for their engines. And come on. I mean, who would not like this? All the built-up negative press about this car is like the time when you were a teenager and you got 7 minutes in heaven with the head cheerleader at your school, and you thought she was unattainable. You thought she was in another world, and all of a sudden you're there with her, and you're doing what teenagers do in a closet together, and then you stop in the last 40 seconds, and you talk to her, and she's actually nice, and you just want to pinch yourself. And that is what it's like to drive the Lamborghini Countach. That right there is it. This is not a disappointment in any way, shape, or form. This is, to me, the best exotic car in the world. The Miura came before it. Amazing. The Diablo came after it, and then the Diablo VT with all-wheel drive. And yes, is it technically better? There are no driving aids in this car. No ABS. No help with this tire sensing you're slipping and doing that and doing this. This is just you and the car. And this is the most outrageous, amazing poster car exotic in the world. I don't care about your modern Lamborghinis. I don't care about the new Countach. No, this is the one. This is the driver's car. This is the real deal. And I told the owner, I hope you're prepared to be in the car for a little while, because I have no shortage of things to say about this car. How much is it worth? Well, in today's market, you're looking at $500,000 to $700,000 or more. The owner's saying more. So, you know, this one with such low mileage, absolutely it's more. So the car is priceless now. Even driving this car is a privilege, because, you know, it might be expensive to maintain and this and that. This is a lifetime experience driving this car. Although he said it's been a basically reliable car over its ownership. Maybe some replacements of the radiator and things like that. So, what do you hear everywhere on the internet? Lamborghini Countaches, they're terrible to own, this and that and the other. The only problems the owner's had with this in all the years he's owned it, about 14 years, it has left him on the road about 5 times, but all because a fuel pump relay really was just not connected properly, and it took a real expert to track down that problem. So that's the problem with ownership of these cars. It's these little silly problems you get, and sometimes they can be problematic. I had the same sort of thing with my Lancia Zagato years ago. Yes, you can find that review on YouTube. In Italy, I rented an Alfa Romeo 156, and this was on the trip where I interviewed Valentino Balboni at the factory. And the engine and transmission in that car was so beautiful, and the passenger seat just fell down for no reason. We had to get it fixed in Sirmione with the guards in the tower there. It was hilarious. But these are the little things of Italian car ownership that I already know from owning a Lancia Delta Integrale. The horn honks for no apparent reason when you turn. But in truth, owning this car has been a joy for this owner. Why wouldn't it be? Everybody that sees this car loves it. Malcolm Forbes said in an interview a long time ago, it's not like a stretch limousine that offends everybody. This is a car that everybody wants to see. David E. Davis said in the 60 Minutes piece on this car that just shaped my love for this car even more than the first 2 minutes of Cannonball Run, he said anybody who thinks they're worth anything should own a 12-cylinder automobile in their lifetime. And that right there tells you everything you need to know about this car. One of my favorite journalists, who I did thankfully meet on a Volkswagen Jetta press junket, he said that, and I'll never forget it. I'll never forget that 60 Minutes piece. Have you smashed that like button and subscribed? You know, it's Italian. There's stupid things that go wrong with these cars. My Lancia Delta Integrale honks its horn for no apparent reason, but I get the same sort of feedback from people driving around. Maybe not quite as the Countach, but I do own a bucket list car, that Lancia Delta Integrale, and the engine and transmission is like this. It's so wonderful to drive with the all-wheel drive. They say it's the fastest car point to point back then. Probably faster than this one if there's any sand or moisture or anything on the road. But it is an iconic experience. I know what it's like, and sometimes just the craziest things go wrong. But again, at the end of the day, you don't care, because you have the prettiest girl on your arm. You're walking around with the most beautiful supermodel ever. Again, even the Pagani Huayra, beautiful car. I mean, who wouldn't love that? The Bugatti Veyron, beautiful car. Still, they're basically driving you in ways. They do have safeties built in, some. This one just doesn't. This is you. Are you good enough to drive the Countach? The brakes, by the way, they're not quite Porsche brakes, I'll say, but they're good. They're good big brakes. Woo! This is where it all comes in, right here. Wow. This is called an Italian tune-up, and seriously, you have to drive these cars. You have to clean out the injection and things like that. This is called an Italian tune-up. You need to drive these cars. You need to let them warm up first. They're Italian, they're temperamental. Everything else in the world might go wrong, but this engine and this transmission, yeah, with a slightly heavy clutch pedal effort, blah, 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 the pedals are close together. Who cares? it is an experience like no other because you're in a Countach. Look at this. Oh my God. Woo. Every single car you see coming at you is staring at this car. If it's a male driver or a male passenger, without exception. Every single one of them. So all that stuff you see about leaning out the door, like you see Valentino Balboni, the test driver, or Jay Leno leaning out the door and they're reversing it because you can't really see really well. That's all BS according to the owner. What you want to do is you want to just put it in reverse and use the mirrors, because if you slip or something goes wrong, you can damage the engine or the clutch. And you know, this is a very expensive car. That's why I tell people when you're driving a manual car, put it in neutral when you're driving up to a light. Don't downshift, 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 because brakes are less expensive than engines and clutches. So that's why I bought my Maserati Spider and Cambio Corsa, guys, because I wanted to show people that the Cambio Corsa doesn't suck. And I wanted to show you how to actually properly shift that. So check that out. My Maserati M138 buyer's guide and review, and that'll explain that. But let's reverse this Countach right now. Here we go. Clutch in, lock out, and then up into reverse, and then you check, and you glance, and you check, and you crank the wheel, and it's hard. Yeah, those are things about this car. The clutch pedal effort, and you can feel every single bump here, and it's hard to turn at low speeds. But still, who cares? Let's do this. Oh, there's a truck right there we can see. They're just looking at us though, this is the problem. There's a truck staring at us as we do this. It's kind of funny. That's the hardest part about driving a car like the Countach, when you can't see outside of it. Everybody creeps up on you. Everybody's in your blind spot. It's frightening because this car is priceless. Absolutely priceless. Now, if you want to stop your Countach and you're on a hill, you want to go ahead and put it in reverse. You want to pull up the emergency brake, and then you can shut it off, and then you're safe and it's not going to roll. So how do you get out of this car? On my Barbie Dream Wagon, my Citroen CX wagon, you just have a gun trigger pull. But this one, you actually reach up under here, and then you open it up. Oh, there we go. The scissor doors. And then it beeps at you in an annoying Italian way. Look at this. It's a Countach. It's amazing. How do I get out? Oh my God. Oh God. Now, in terms of the history of these Countach as well, of course, it replaced the wonderful Miura, and you had the prototypes coming out in '71, and that's of course where the car got its name, because you had actually the model builder, and he was so impressed with the car, it was like basically he just spoke a dialect expression, not even Italian, and he was saying Countach the whole time. So somebody else joked they should call the car the Countach, and they did, and it just stuck, and that's how it got its name. So a few prototypes were built. They wanted to put a 5-liter in there, and they ended up with really a 3.9 liter, 4,000. So the original Countach was called the LP 400, and then that was in 1974 when it actually came out. And then in 1978, they came out with the 400S, and then in 1982, it was the LP 500, and then you had this one here, came out in 1985, the Quattro valve. So they switched from 3.9 liters, 4.2, and all the way up to the really 5.2 liter car. There was a turbo built, and that sort of thing. There were special cars built along the way as well. But in total, under 2,000, about 1,983 of these cars were built. And they're so desirable. So, you know, continued value is just pretty much guaranteed, because these cars are just so rare and everybody wants one. So that's basically the history. There was the periscope of the first one. Beautiful looking car. I think they really got better looking when the 400S came out, and they put the wider tires on that they needed for traction, because, you know, you need a lot of tire to put down the traction on a car this powerful. What do I have to say after driving this Countach? Well, let's just put it to you this way. To understand this car really, in a world where 1,000 horsepower is kind of everywhere, and it's a horsepower war, it's silly. You know, my 1982 Targa, I bought the cheapest Porsche 911 on YouTube, you can find it, had about 185 horsepower, okay? So when this came out in, you know, 1985 was when this one was released, it had 420 in America and more in Europe horsepower. You don't understand. Most of the cars that you wanted to buy, that you lusted after, had 250 horsepower maybe. So this is cartoon-like. The horsepower of this Countach, 420 in 1988, was like the 1,200 horsepower cars that you read about today. It was mind-boggling. So everything about the Countach is just absolutely stunning and incredible. Yes, it's an icon. I met my hero. I am so incredibly pleased to have driven this amazing Countach, and it did not let me down at all. Not one single bit. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Smash that like button, subscribe, share my videos, search any car and Drivin Ivan. And of course, check out all my other car reviews, disc golf videos, music videos, like where I play all the instruments on Hotel California, and my original song Free Your Mind has a lot of my car collection in it. If you want to know what Drivin Ivan drives, well, just search what does Drivin Ivan drive and look for the updated version, the music video, and there you have it. Again, thank you so much for watching. I'm Drivin Ivan. Very thrilled and excited. Drivin Ivan.